Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Malcolm Gordon to defeat Jimmy Flick. And I will get to that fight at the end of this video, but I will start this video recapping UFC 297 by talking about one of our two new champions. Dricus du Plessis becomes the world middleweight champion, defeating Sean Strickland by split decision in one of the closest fights I've ever seen. Razor thin fight. Could have gone either way, you can't complain. And it could have gone either way under any scoring system. You could judge this fight as a whole, and I don't know, still a toss-up. And in the UFC, under the 10-point must system, it's a toss-up, and it all comes down to round 2, in my opinion. I thought DDP won rounds 3 and 4, and Sean Strickland definitely won 1 and 5. Round 2 is your winner. And 2 judges gave it to DDP. And I've got to be honest, you may not want to hear this, but ultimately what won him the championship is those takedowns. He ripped Sean Strickland to the mat many times with beautiful, explosive double legs that were there for him in a big way and very deep into the fight. And they weren't there for him in round 5, I think, or round 1, but they were there for him as deep as round 4. And he's a guy who'd never been to round 4. So he really impressed me in that respect. And look, on the ground, he didn't do anything. You add up the 3-4 takedowns. I don't know how much control time there was or if there was any ground and pound at all. I can't tell you the stats. I know altogether it was almost nothing. But that almost nothing becomes almost everything when everything else is equal. And that was the case here. It was a very equal striking battle. I thought DDP handled himself very well, especially after a very tough round 1. Sean Strickland looked phenomenal in round 1. He was very much cleaner, jabbing his face off. I think he bloodied him up in round 1. And even more impressively, he was defensively sound. DDP looked flustered and a step behind and sloppy like he always does. But he does what he always does. He's one of those adaptive fighters. We've seen him a step behind in maybe most of his UFC fights at one point or another, and he's always made the adjustments. He was the one getting in Sean Strickland's face, started to get through the guard and hurt him with the strikes in round 2, and of course the takedowns only opened things up for him. You know, especially those type of takedowns where you explode with a double leg and put Strickland on his ass in a second. So he was really effective in the middle of the fight. I thought he took over, and Sean Strickland was the last man standing, as I like to say. He had an incredible round 5. I thought Strickland was really going for it. You know, you don't see him swing overhands, spam them, as the kids say. And that's what Strickland was doing. I mean, he was effective with them. Not that he beat DDP up too badly, but he definitely won the round and got the better of him in round 5. And again, sucks, it's a razor-thin fight. Sucks for Strickland to lose a title like that. By a hair, and that's how Dana White felt. He said that at the press conference. He subscribes to that old boxing adage of you have to take the belt from the champion. You have to really take it from him. So why don't you afford the champion like 2 points then? You know, that's bullshit. You can win by a split decision over the champion. You can win by disqualification over the champion, as Aljamain Sterling will tell you, and as Anthony Smith wishes he could tell you. But DDP won by a hair, but someone was going to win this fight by a hair. And the guy that mixed it up more gets the nod. From here, I don't know where either guy goes next. I think DDP will be fighting at UFC 300. I know UFC 300, they're trying to round it out with some stacked main card. I think so far there's only 1 or 2 fights that are going to be on the main card, so there's a lot more to come. And the middleweight title is a big fight, no matter who it is, but certainly if it's DDP versus Adesanya with the promo packages and whatever, it's going to be a very big fight. And that sucks for Sean Strickland because, again, he lost technically, but this was a razor-thin fight. And he's a guy that scratched and clawed and reached the top of the sport, and now he lost it on a coin toss. And again, I think DDP is going to be fighting Adesanya next. I don't think Strickland's going to get the immediate rematch that he deserves from such a close fight here. So that sucks. But maybe he'll get it. I don't know. There's a lot of contenders. Hamzat Chimaev, Cannonier was kind of the forgotten contender, and Adesanya, of course. But Strickland, his next fight's going to be a big fight regardless of who he's against, and he's definitely still in the title picture. He's not done yet. And if he fought Dricus du Plessis in a rematch for the world title in 3 months or whatever, the odds would be dead even, just like they were this time around. Close to even. So, yeah, Strickland, he's not done yet. He's still in his prime, but he lost it all on a coin toss. And for DDP, South African world champion, this guy, he's a star. This guy's great on the mic, too. Not that he's like Strickland, really throwing bombs and whatever. He's much more, respectful and all that. But DDP, he's turned a corner here, and this guy's about to become a superstar, leveling up. And I think a fight against Adesanya, especially a win against Adesanya, would do wonders for him. All right, I'm moving on to Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington wins the world title, the bantamweight world title, beating Mayra Bueno Silva. This was largely a dominant performance from Raquel Pennington, just like I predicted. Don't watch my video. Got it completely wrong. I thought the fight would have looked like it did early. I thought Mayra Bueno Silva looked solid early. Had a lot of good moments against Raquel. Was able to take her down, take her back, and work her grappling-wise. But that was it. She wasn't able to finish her. And then she was able to secure her back control a few more times throughout the fight. But she didn't have the strength to control Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington wore her down. Took her best offense inside a round and a half. And then completely took over the fight. And Raquel almost had her out of there with some nice submissions down the stretch. That arm triangle was really tight. And credit to Mayra Bueno Silva after getting her ass kicked for even surviving that. But I don't want to make this about her. Raquel Pennington, been watching her fight for a long time. She's the girl that disappointed Dana White on The Ultimate Fighter when she lost to Jessica Rakoczy because he had such high expectations for her. If you go back and watch that season. And after that, she came to the UFC, and she was definitely an above-average fighter. But anytime she would level up and fight that, next level, Holly Holm, Jermaine Durandamy, that championship-level fighter, she'd be the one losing a decision. Oftentimes, it'd be a tight decision, but Raquel was always losing the decision. She never won the big one. Got the shot against Amanda Nunes and got the shit kicked out of her for 22 minutes. And then here, she battled her way back to a championship fight with some very tough, gritty performances and tight decisions. Ask Ketlen Vieira. But Raquel Pennington gets her shot against Mayra Bueno Silva and took her best offense and then took over the fight and looked like the true seasoned veteran. The girl doesn't have the prettiest record, whatever it is. It's like 15-7, maybe now it's 16-7, 16-8. But most of those losses are decisions. Most of them are close. And most of them are to a caliber of fighter that is in the Hall of Fame, pretty much. A championship-level fighter. Holly Holm twice. Jermaine Durandamy once. Amanda Nunes, as I said. And here she beat a girl in Mayra Bueno Silva who doesn't have the respect of those girls, but she's certainly one of the best girls in the division. I do think Mayra Bueno Silva would beat Juliana Pena. And Raquel Pennington will be fighting Pena next. That's going to be an awesome fight. That's a grudge match from that Ultimate Fighter season that I was talking about, where they were on, I think they were on opposite teams. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it. No, they were on the same team, I believe. And they didn't like each other, I'm pretty sure, Raquel and Juliana. I don't think anybody really liked Juliana. But anyway, that's the next fight. But this fight here, Raquel Pennington winning the world title, I've got to be very happy for her. I am very happy for her. She's a girl that never had the respect of everybody. She was always kind of under the radar. Like I said, the bridesmaid losing the big one and all that. And here, after the smoke clears and the Lainesse leaves town, Raquel Pennington is left as the top woman in the world. And she fucking earned it. She really earned it. I was doubting her the whole way. I doubted her here up until this fight. I thought Mayra Bueno Silva would get the better of her. She's just more dangerous, more physical, more whatever. And Raquel Pennington took everything she had and took the fight from her. Incredible performance from Raquel. And Mayra Bueno Silva, she looked really tough in defeat, but she looked really limited, like a one-rounder bust type of fighter here. This was not a good performance cardio-wise. So, tough loss for her. But, yeah, Raquel gets all the flowers. Speaking of tough losses and cardio failing and whatever, Neil Magny beat Mike Malott by round 3 TKO. Got him out of there with like 15 seconds left. And this was one of the best comebacks I've ever seen. Mike Malott didn't almost kill Neil Magny, so maybe it's not the greatest comeback in that sense, but he dominated Neil Magny. He dominated him, looked as dominant as Ian Gary, tossing Neil Magny around, chopping him down. Neil didn't have one moment in that fight up until he took over the fight. But Mike Malott, he hasn't shown much vulnerability in his career. He's had one draw and one loss. The loss was at featherweight 10 years ago. He got knocked out by Hakeem Dawodu. TKO'd against the cage anyway. And the one draw was at lightweight to this Bellator fighter. And it was only a draw because he gassed. He gassed badly after having a dominant first round and then surviving for the final 2 rounds. But those are the only potential cracks we've seen in his armor. And it took somebody like Neil Magny, that next level welterweight, always underappreciated and always under the radar. And Neil Magny was able to survive everything Mike Malott gave him. And then in the final 1/6 of the fight, the final 2 minutes of the fight, he took over completely. And he was all over Mike Malott, beating him down, finally advanced a mount with like 30 seconds left or 40 seconds left. And Mike Malott did not have the energy to survive, let alone get up. And Neil Magny just poured it on and forced a stoppage with 15 seconds left. A stoppage that saved him from certain defeat. Unless he did enough to get a 10-8 round in those final seconds there. But I don't think he would have. Although, I don't know. I have to watch the fight again. But either way, he won the fight with the final seconds. And Neil, he hasn't done this precise thing before, but he's had some great comeback victories. Go watch his fight with Hector Lombard, where he was on his way to losing a 10-7 round and then turned it around inside that round and ended up smashing Hector Lombard. Actually, I think they finished that round and Neil was up like 10-8, and then he finished him in the next round. But Neil Magny, he's always been one of those low-key problems in the UFC's welterweight division. Here he was not supposed to beat Mike Malott, but they were only matched together because Mike Malott's got to answer questions before he moves up. And Neil Magny's precisely the kind of guy that'll ask those questions. And that's what happened here. Neil took everything Mike Malott gave him, and Mike Malott was not able to be the nail. He could be the hammer for 14 minutes, but he couldn't be the nail for 1 minute. And Neil Magny, who doesn't often get stoppages, came through in a big way and got himself one of his best victories ever. And you know what? This might get better with age. Mike Malott has the career I expect him to. And he's already looked great inside the UFC. But this might be Neil's best win. Certainly one of them. And he's a guy who's beaten former champions and whatever. But yeah, Mike Malott still got a lot of proving to do. But very pretty win for Neil Magny. I mean, he looked phenomenal here. Well, he didn't look phenomenal. He got the shit kicked out of him. But he looked very durable, and he looked as experienced as ever, taking over that fight in the final 2 minutes. Fucking awesome. Really made my day, Neil Magny. Chris Curtis beats Marc-Andre Barrio. This was a really close fight, Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barrio. I thought this one was destined to go the distance, and I thought this was destined to be a fight where neither guy really had too many big moments, and that's pretty much the fight we got. Chris Curtis won a decision in Canada. I did think he kind of got the better of Barrio, but I still thought when they were going to the cards, it could have gone either way, because Barrio was in it to the end. But they gave the nod to Chris Curtis, and that's good, because he probably would have thrown a fit if he didn't win a decision. And Chris Curtis, one of those guys who is reliable at 36 or whatever he is now. He's reliably durable, reliably in shape, and deceptively powerful, Chris Curtis. He's definitely in the top half of the powerful welterweights, or middleweights. And yeah, he narrowly beat Marc-Andre Barrio, but he beat him, and he beat him in Canada. There was no home cooking with the decision. And Chris Curtis moves on, and that's a good rebound for him after that tough fight against Nassourdine Imavov, where Chris Curtis looked flustered, was taken down for the first time, and just did not have a good night, and ended up getting his eye gouged or whatever. But here, he got revenge, got redemption, I should say, and he's back on the winning track. And for Marc-Andre Barriault, this was a big disappointment for him. He still fought well, but he was kind of a step behind, half step behind. And yeah, it sucks for him to lose in Canada, as it does with every other Canadian guy who fought last night. 7 Canadian men, and they lost all 7 fights. The 2 Canadian women won, though, which I'll get to in a little bit. Movsar Evloev beat Arnold Allen. This was a dominant performance from Movsar, largely speaking. I thought he looked really good, ripping Arnold Allen to the mat. Arnold Allen, and he also rocked Arnold Allen, kind of half dropped him with a jab and a big right hand behind that, and really made Arnold Allen a step behind, forced him to play catch up for the rest of that fight. And Arnold Allen looked good in round 3, coming out on fire, ripping to that body, but it was too little, too late. Movsar was in total control early on, and Arnold Allen did not have an answer for his wrestling. That's cost him in the past, but, well, only really once, technically. That first decision he lost to the guy Marcin Rocek. But it hasn't cost him since, but it's been a vulnerability of his where he's been taken down. Again, he had some of those close fights, Alan Omer and Mads Burnell. He snatched a ninja choke in round 3 that saved him from almost certain defeat due to top control for his opponent. And you know what? He went for the ninja choke in round 3 here, and it was half tight, forced Movsar Evloev to spin around and try to fight to get out of it. But Movsar did that. Movsar's never been finished, never been beaten, and so far he's passed every test. And this one is his best victory yet, Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen is an awesome fighter, top 5, whatever he is. I think he's number 4 in the world or something. Just had a war with Max Holloway, and Movsar Evloev was able to cleanly beat him, very clearly beat him. So this guy, I don't know where he goes from here, Max Holloway, whatever, but I'd say he's 1 fight away from a title, regardless of who he fights. And for Arnold Allen, he's a step behind now, still a top 10 fighter, but this is a loss that I think will age pretty well, and he's not done yet. He's still in his prime, and he gave Movsar a good amount of trouble as well, and also an illegal knee or whatever, which I'm glad that kind of fizzled out, because that really shouldn't have been a moment. Garrett Armfield beat Brad Katona by decision. This was another close fight, but Garrett Armfield looked really good in this fight. Garrett Armfield was able to beat Brad on the feet. I thought Brad is the more comfortable striker, more seasoned striker, but Garrett Armfield is more powerful and has height and reach, or reach anyway, I think. I don't know, I think he had a good amount of reach. But anyway, really close fight. Not too many people have gotten the better of Brad Katona, only Hunter Azure and Merab Dvalishvili. And now Garrett Armfield puts himself in that company, and he's on the winning track, beating an Ultimate Fighter, a 2-time Ultimate Fighter winner in Brad Katona. Huge win for Garrett Armfield. I did not expect this, although I didn't expect Brad Katona to dominate him. I thought Brad would win a tight decision, but he outpointed one of the best point fighters in Brad Katona. Garrett Armfield looked scrappy in defeat against David Onama, who also beat him as an amateur, and he took that fight on short notice. But since then, he looked great in that knockout over Toshiomi Kazama, and here against Brad Katona, scratched and clawed for a decision victory over the decision fighter, and a very damn good one. So a great win for Garrett, and really tough loss for Brad. I did think it could have gone his way, but I don't think it should have. Sean Woodson beats Charles Jourdain. This was a surprise to me, although not the biggest surprise. Sean Woodson is an excellent striker with a lot of physical advantages over everybody else in the division, including Charles Jourdain. And I thought Charles Jourdain was in trouble when I heard Dominic Cruz or somebody, Anthony Smith, somebody say that he said he wants to win the fight at range against Sean Woodson. That's what he said in the fighter meeting. And I went, oh, fuck. And he lost the fight at range. Sean Woodson, you can't play range striking with that guy. You just can't. I thought Charles Jourdain needed to be on the inside, where he's more powerful and tight and also more dangerous. But he wasn't able to get Sean Woodson down. It's not like he didn't try to get inside and try to take him down. Sean Woodson was just, he's improved at a level where he took all that away from Charles Jourdain. And Charles Jourdain did have one guillotine attempt, I think in round 3 or whatever, and that's Charles Jourdain's best submission there. And nothing came of it anyway. So Sean Woodson got the biggest win of his career over Charles Jourdain. Looked really good doing so. And for Charles Jourdain, he hung in there tough, was a step behind, not able to adapt against this giraffe he's fighting. But in the end, I thought he looked good in round 3, looked better in round 3, and whatever. He didn't get finished. I suppose there's that. So we'll see what happens with these guys, but Sean Woodson's a guy with a lot of upside, even though it's very unique upside, and he walks away the winner. That brings me to Ramon Taveras versus Serhiy Sidey. Serhiy Sidey was robbed in this fight, I thought. Look, Ramon Taveras roughed up Serhiy, roughed him up, dropped him cleanly in round 2, and maybe a few other times in round 1. I don't know if he knocked him down twice or just rocked him. I just remember the big moments. And I thought Serhiy Sidey was roughed up behind the point of taking control of the fight, but he did. The guy had incredible volume, incredible grit, because he was getting hurt in every round, like I said, and that big moment in round 2 was the worst knockdown. And he didn't go anywhere. I thought he took over the fight. I didn't think he had one big moment either. No knockdown or whatever himself. But he still took over the fight with volume and pressure and some excellent striking. And I thought he definitely won round 3. I thought he definitely stole round 2 in the end with that work. And I don't remember if it was a unanimous decision or split or whatever, but it didn't go his way. And that really surprised me. I mean, there must have been a lot of weight put on that big moment in round 2 to seal the round for Ramon Taveras. And you know what? If he had that big moment in the final minute of the fight, the final minute of the round, with recency bias, I would have scored it for him. But it happened earlier, and then Serhiy Sidey took over the fight and looked incredible. Serhiy Sidey. I got to try to start saying his name right. But yeah, he got robbed, in my opinion. Serhiy got robbed, in my opinion. I thought he definitely won this fight, and I thought they took away a really gritty victory. You know, it's one thing to win, whatever, by some lopsided decision here. This was one where he had to scratch and claw against a guy who kicked his ass. And in the end, he started kicking that guy's ass, and he got robbed in the end. And I hesitate to use the word robbery most of the time, but this one was really bad. Still a close fight overall, but the decision was pretty clear to me. That brings me to Gillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. Gillian Robertson did what Gillian Robertson does, only she didn't get the rear naked choke. She got the TKO, positional TKO from the mount, just like she did to Sarah Frota. And that's just Gillian Robertson. She's just so strong on top. You look at her and say, how the fuck is she this strong? Look at her. But she's so technical that she will just hold you down, not give you an inch. And if she does give you an inch, it's because she means to give you an inch, and she wants to advance on you positionally, maybe take your back. And she was in total control of Polyana Viana after the first 2 minutes of round 1. And Polyana Viana never really had another moment after that, I think. Gillian was able to dominate her on the ground, and she wasn't able to secure the choke, but kept that mount, kept that dominance, and pounded her out. Got her second TKO victory in her whole MMA career. Very impressive. She's the first girl to TKO Polyana Viana, even though, again, it's just a grappling loss, in my opinion. But great win for Gillian. Regardless whether it came from TKO or submission, she came through and became one of the top finishers in female history. They showed the stat. I think she's below only Amanda Nunes. I could be wrong about that, but she's on the list, the very short list of top finishers. I think she's got 9 now inside the octagon. And for Polyana Viana, this sucks. She is an awesome fighter to watch, one of the most dangerous females on the planet, but she's vulnerable. And as dangerous as she is on the ground, she's also weak on the ground. And she was taken out on the ground in similar type of fashion against Jasmine Lucindo and now Jillian Robertson in consecutive fights. I don't know where she's going to go if she'll stick around, but I hope she does, because anytime she's on the card, it's going to be an exciting fight one way or another. That brings me to Sam Patterson choking out Johan Lainesse. This was not a guillotine. This was a conventional takedown rear naked choke. I thought Johan would rough him up with some heavy kicks and punches from a heavy welterweight, but Sam Patterson just did not have any of that. Took him down pretty quickly, and that was it. Took his back. It was all very methodical and very basic, but it was over. Just a guy that was that much better at grappling than Johan Lainesse. Johan Lainesse is not a bad grappler either. He'll never be known for grappling and whatever, but and you know, at the UFC level, you're not going to see too much of it, but he's a comfortable grappler. Here, he was just completely outgunned, and it was settled within like a minute once they hit the ground. So Sam Patterson bounces back after a very tough loss, his second loss, both of which come by knockouts to the right hands, and moves up in weight, takes some steps to improve his career, and so far, it's worked out well for him. Got a beautiful finish over Johan Lainesse, and he's 1-0 at welterweight. And for Johan, I don't know. He may not be sticking around too long. He's definitely not the best fighter and definitely not the most versatile fighter at the UFC level. But at the very least, he served his purpose. Speaking of which, Jasmine Jasdavicius got a dominant victory over Priscilla Cachoeira. Got her with a Dars in round 3, or an Anaconda. I have to rewatch it. I do know the difference. But she could have gotten a finish at any point in those first 12 minutes or whatever it was. It was one of the most dominant fights I've ever seen. And dominant to the point where you're asking, how the fuck is this thing not stopped? There were so many near endings to that fight where it was amazing that the ref didn't stop it. She was beating her and choking her, spent probably the whole fight in the mount. Did they start in the mount? I don't even remember how they got to the ground, but she just beat the shit out of Priscilla Cachoeira. Cachoeira looked very tough, very gritty, but very lost as well. She was not able to take even one step to improving her position. It was all just survival, doing that thing from the mount, grabbing, trying to bear hug Jasmine and protect herself from strikes that way. She was lost. And she kept showing up round after round, and then round 3, she finally succumbed to, again, whatever it was. I think it was a Dars. I know Jasmine went for that Dars a few times throughout the fight as well, but I think her arms were a little too long. She wasn't able to really tighten things up. But in the end, with the extra beating that was put on Priscilla Cachoeira at that point, I think any submission would have gotten her out of there. I think she would have tapped to a can opener. So great win for Jasmine, getting her first finish as a UFC fighter and one of her only finishes. Not one of her only finishes, but I think she had one submission victory. Maybe I'm wrong. But she got her first UFC victory here via finish. Maybe it's one TKO. Either way, whichever one it is, it happened in her debut. I'd have to look at her record again. But she tapped Priscilla Cachoeira, who may not be the best and may be one of the more vulnerable fighters, but still, you have to actually go in there and get it done, and Jasmine looked phenomenal. Beat the shit out of her to the point where she forced a stoppage. And that brings me to Jimmy Flick beating Malcolm Gordon by arm triangle choke in round 2. This was just a good performance from Jimmy Flick, but not great. And for Malcolm Gordon, it was an awful performance. Awful. He could have won this fight many different ways. They had that one clear path to victory of keeping it on the feet, and really only one path to defeat by taking it to the ground, where his opponent Jimmy Flick had 14 submission victories in his 16 wins, and now it's 15 out of 17 wins. And I know what Gordon was thinking. Gordon, if he had his way, he'd like to take the fight to the ground. Typically, I trust that's what he was thinking there. Hey, I'm focused on my offense. And also, Jimmy Flick's been TKO'd on the ground a few times, but the way they were fighting on the feet, he's an idiot. for even taking it to the ground. They were on the feet in rounds 1 and 2, and it was Malcolm Gordon teeing off on Jimmy Flick. Jimmy Flick looked uncomfortable. I don't think he landed a strike. I'd have to rewatch it. I don't think he landed a strike. I just remember him getting knocked around into the cage and stumbling around. And Malcolm Gordon just lost this fight on his own. It was fight IQ. Fight IQ. He ripped Jimmy Flick to the mat, which I thought was a mistake early, but especially in round 2. And Jimmy Flick is a shark on the ground, and he knows how to swim. And Malcolm Gordon does not. I mean, Malcolm Gordon is a good grappler. He's a better grappler than he is a striker, but he's not a better grappler than Jimmy Flick is a grappler. And Jimmy Flick was too much for him. Had him in a deep Von Flue choke after a reversal in round 1. I really thought that was it. But in round 2, again, engaging in a grappling match with that shark, and Jimmy Flick locked up an arm triangle, his best move, and Malcolm Gordon couldn't get out. It was a real shit fight for Malcolm Gordon. Again, he had victory in his hands, and not just theoretically or rhetorically. He had Jimmy Flick staggering on the feet, and half staggering on the ground and whatever. But there was only one way he can lose, and he found it. And I don't want to take away from Jimmy Flick's effort, because Jimmy Flick got a very big victory here. Might have moved his career forward, certainly moved his UFC career forward. But again, this is a guy that retired a few years ago. Maybe he would have retired with a loss here, his 3rd consecutive loss in the UFC, which likely would have gotten him cut. And instead, he fights to survive. Got a big victory with I guess you'd call it a comeback too. An arm triangle choke in round 2. Keeps his submission streak hot and everything else. But I don't think he's going to last too long in the UFC. I think this is one of the few guys he could have beaten. And same goes for Malcolm Gordon. This was one of the few guys he could have beaten. And now the guy that won, he's going to move on to more dangerous, well-rounded fighters. So I'm rooting for Jimmy Flick because I love jiu-jitsu guys. But yeah, he's really up against it moving forward. And for Malcolm Gordon, I'm pretty sure he retired last night, which, might not be the worst decision. Just, he's got some health issues, just like Jimmy Flick. These guys are not durable fighters. Not that, the submission last night took years off his life or whatever, like a concussion would. Which, I don't even know about that. People say, it took years off. It might have took a minute off your life. Who knows? But this one wasn't that taxing. It's just a loss to the bottom of the barrel in the UFC. And it's definitely a sign that this is it for you. So Gordon retired, Jimmy Flick moves on, lives to retire another day, and they gave us the fight we expected. I thought it could have gone either way, but I thought either way it was going to end up in a finish, a submission for Jimmy Flick or a knockout for Malcolm Gordon. And they showed up, presented their weaknesses, and we got a finish. So overall, very good event, UFC 297, even though the main card was very heavy on decisions. It was still very compelling, especially that main event. Really, really close fight. But, not the best pay-per-view event, if I'm being honest. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.